Alright, so this one isn't my normal video, but I had an idea to do some quick little one-off, quick painting tips to go through and kind of supplement my videos so that I can link to as I paint. So this one right here is going to be texture painting with sponges. So you can get some really neat textures and looks with different types of sponges that you have. And this is great for kind of weathering and making things kind of look a lot weathered chip paint and kind of muddy, splattered kind of stuff. And so that's what we're going to be working with here. I'll be doing it on a Gaslands car, but I'm going to show you on this little guy here. I've got just a resin cast that I'll show you kind of what this actually does before we get into something and get really moving on this. So I'm going to use some black paint. Let me grab some black paint here. So I've just got a little model color black paint. I'm going to throw the black paint on and in just a little bit. I'm not going to use a lot because this is just a quick tutorial. So now that I've got the black paint on, the main thing here, you're almost kind of like just stamping. That's all you're doing is you're getting a little paint on, and then you're just stamping stamping the texture. Because you can see the sponge has a lot of neat textures on all the different corners. Tons of different textures that you could use to your advantage. So the key here is not to have the right amount of paint. So you got to learn what the right amount of paint is. You don't want too much paint because it's going to look a little splotchy. You're not going to get good textures. But with just a little bit of paint, kind of like dry brushing, you're going to dab it and you're going to get some good textures. So what I usually do is I have a paper towel in my hand, paper towel everywhere. And I've dabbed it in the black paint, and I'm just going to dab it. You can see how it's just a splotch. And as I dab more, you start getting neat textures. So there we go. You see how it kind of got some texture there? And so that's kind of what you want to look for right there. And once you get that texture on the paper towel, what you can start doing is you can texture paint. And so I'm just straight up and down. That's all you want to do is straight up and down. And you can see the neat little texture that you're getting. And you can do several different ways. So you can do the dabbing like that. And then you can also scrape it. Like that. So it looks like a mud scrape. Or you can kind of combine it. Do a little bit of a scrape. And so depending on what you do, and then even if it's still what you can drag with your finger, so you can experiment quite a bit. Different lengths of drags will give you different textures. This isn't really the green part isn't really the only one that you can use. You can get different textures with the yellow part. So let's do the same thing with the yellow part. I'm going to dab it off until I get a good texture. You can see right there. And then I'm going to go right here. And you can see that I'm getting a different type of texture. Looks probably a little bit. There we go. See how it's a different texture? Get that texture and that texture. And so there's two different textures. Now if you get this a little wet, like I just did, and you want a mud splatter, what you do is you dry it off a little bit. Don't want to get it too wet. And you get it there, and you could hit it really hard and probably get a mud splatter out of it. So maybe. So you get a little bit of a mud splatter. Maybe even too much. And you can see you're starting to get a little bit of a splatter pattern to it. So that's one way to do it with these sponges. Now, not all sponges are created equal. You can grab a different sponge and kind of experiment with different types of textures. So you can see I'm getting a different type of texture here, and I'm using the corner, rotating it. So not even stay in the same part of the sponge, but go in a different part of the sponge and see what you can get. Look at that. I mean, that's some kind of interesting stuff. You can't even make that stuff up. You can't even paint that by hand. And here we are getting it with just a sweep, a clean sweep. Some really neat texture. So now, let's apply that to a Gaslands car. Let me get an overhead camera, and I've got a car that I'm working on, and we'll apply that in kind of a real world painting situation. And here we are overhead with the Gaslands car that I've been working on. And so I'm going to do some mud splatter around the wheel wells right here, and even like some on the top, and we'll do a little bit of mud splatter and we'll kind of show you what happens. I've got two different colors here. I'm just going to really go with kind of some flat colors for this tutorial, but you can mix it up. As I've always said, not all mud is created equal. You got to kind of layer the color and make it look different. But I've got two different colors here. I've got a redder, kind of a rust, and I've got kind of a more mild toned down beige. It's like a maroon beige from Model Colors, I believe, and then this is actually a rust color. So let's try this out, this texture painting, and see what we can do. So I'm going to get a little bit of I'm going to go with the light color first, and I'm going to lay down a base of the white color. And I'm still going to be texture painting, but I'm going to texture paint it a little bit thicker just to lay that base color down. And so I've got the same sponge that I was using. I kind of like this sponge right here, so we're going to use this sponge for the base coat. We've got our practice paper towel here. We've got our beige. And so let's go in and just dab, dab, dab. Dab the devil out of it. Dab it out. And so we've got a little bit of, got some stuff working. I'm just kind of seeing where I like. There we go. And now this is where you start thinking, okay, where's the mud going to splatter? Is it going to splatter up here? Probably, maybe, it might. But most part, the mud's going to be kicked right here and up here, and then, you know, down the wheel wells here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to create kind of a realistic mud splatter. And just lightly dabbing it. Dabbing it. And dabbing it. And so, as I said, this one I want it to be kind of thick. I'm laying down a little bit more of a base color. And then on the bottom, I'm going to kind of come up over the car and create a neat little texture where it looks like it's being kicked up. I'm going to flip the car over. We'll do the same thing. Kick it up a little bit up here. Kick it up a little bit up there. There we go. Maybe even on the hood. Let's get to the front of the car, because that front of the car is going to get a lot of good stuff coming to it. Because of course you're in the middle of the pack, you're going to get hit with Lord knows what. And so same way I did with the wheel well up, we're just going to kind of come in and just kind of clip it. There we go. Clip it. And then even just a little bit of texture painting up there to kind of resemble some of the mud that just stuck. And I'm turning it because I don't want the same pattern, because even though it looks random, there's still kind of a pattern to these sponges, so you want to turn them as you go. Alright, and so there we have our base layer. Now that actually looks kind of good right now. Like real mud on the hood. That's what we've got working. It looks like literal mud splatter, but we could take it to the next level. So let's take it to the next level and add a little bit of highlight with our mud. Our rust color now. Take our rust. We're going to go in. We're going to kick it right there. And same thing. And you know what? Honestly, even though it has this some brown paint on it, I'm going to use it anyway, because it's dirt. It's like it's the epitome of dirty, and so I've got a dirty sponge. Why clean the sponge or use a clean part of the sponge when I can just add more excitement to this mud? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in. We're not going to lay it in as heavily. I'm just going to very lightly dab it in the areas that are really thick. First, I'm going to start with the thick areas. I'm not going to start even with the bigger areas, because this, as I'm seeing it, it's like, wow, that's kind of bright. And so I want to tone it down a little bit now. I'm just trying to get a good feel for good color here. I may have went too muddy, but you know what? That's okay, because we can pick and choose our dirt here. Yeah, you know what? I want a little bit more brown. Old paint. This is going to be good. Sometimes the best paint is the old paint. We're weathering, and so we want old paint, right? So why not use old paint instead of trying to recreate old paint? Ooh, yeah, now we got it. Yeah, that's how you know you got the good stuff. Now we're just going to kind of... This is where it gets to be a little bit of a finesse. You just kind of build it in and just let it ride. Yeah. Same for this side. May have gotten too dark, but honestly it's not that bad. The only thing that I don't like right now is that it's kind of matching the color of the car, so we need to go a little bit lighter. So let's just pick up. Same, still using the dirty part of the sponge. And we're lightening it up with that original color. And after all is said and done, and you've got all your paint splatter, this is really what you kind of might get with layering the colors. Get to the front of the vehicle there. Got some mud. Side of the vehicle. And there you have it. I may have went overboard a little bit too much, but I was kind of doing this as a quick tutorial, so I could have probably spent a little bit more time placing where that mud goes, but you kind of get the idea of what is possible with painting just a sponge. So until next time, keep making and breaking stuff.